Okay, well, I'm going to get us started so we have enough time for today's Eat Well Bites session. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. I'm Julie Chabdi, the Associate Director of the Health and Wellbeing Program with the Workwell Center at USC. And welcome to our last session of the semester. Today's topic is vitamins and minerals, fueling your body for optimal well-being. Throughout today's session, you're welcome to use the chat to ask questions or to make comments or the Q&A function. At the end, we'll have time for Q&A as well as some announcements that we'll share and also asking you all to fill out the evaluation forms and a raffle. Please make sure you mute to minimize any background noise. I'd like to thank our Eat Well co-leads, Professor Carrie Kreutzer with the USC Leonard Davis School of Gerontology and Keck School of Medicine, and Lindsay Pine, dining dietitian with USC Hospitality, as well as all members of the Eat Well subcommittee. On behalf of our Eat Well subcommittee, we're excited to offer you Eat Well Bites, which are monthly bite-sized nutrition education webinars occurring the first Thursday of every month. We will be taking a break this summer and resuming in September. But our goal is to continue to provide you with practical tips, demonstrations, and resources to support and improve health and quality of life through nutrition and healthy eating habits. As always, a reminder to move. Feel free to stand, stretch in any manner that feels best during today's session. And now I'd like to introduce our presenter for today. Nick Zarati is the sports dietitian supervisor at USC, where he supports elite athletic performance through evidence-based nutrition. Over the course of his career, Nick has contributed to multiple conference championships and two national championships. Before returning to USC, Nick was the director of Olympic sports nutrition at the University of Arizona, where he supported 22 varsity programs at various points and served as the interim football dietitian during two preseason camps. Prior to Arizona, Nick spent a year as the Olympic Sports Nutrition Fellow at the University of Maryland, where he served as a team dietitian for 6 teams. While completing his master's degree, he also worked as a seasonal nutrition assistant for the Los Angeles Chargers during the 2021-22 NFL season. Nick earned his master's in nutrition, health span, and longevity from USC in 2022 and holds a bachelor's degree in kinesiology from University of Virginia. He's also a registered dietitian and board certified specialist in sports dietetics. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Nick.
Thank you, Julie. Hi, everyone. So grateful to be here. So today we're just going to kind of go through what we're going to talk about in these brief little bullet points. So um, obviously our topic is about vitamins and minerals. So we're going to cover why micronutrients matter, how deficiencies can impact performance, but not just athletic performance, health and just brain performance as well. Um, we'll talk about why you should never skip a meal. And then we'll cover some nutrients. So things like omega-3s, some vitamin D, our stress or anti-stress maybe nutrients, and then some electrolytes. And then we'll cover my favorite tip of eating the rainbow. So first question for the chat. What is the difference between micro and macronutrients? I would love to see some answers in the chat. No clue. Not sure. I love your honesty, everyone. I know the answer, but that's why I'm here. Okay, Eddie, I see one of our first answers. Catherine, I love that you're being honest, that you're Googling it. Um, so I'm seeing some right answers. So macronutrients are our carbs, protein, and fat. So you've heard of all those three things. And then micronutrients are vitamins and minerals. We're going to touch a little bit more on the difference and like how different they are, but marketing, yeah, they're definitely marketed a little bit differently as well. Awesome, good answers. So we'll kind of touch on the difference in the next slide. So Micronutrients. So vitamins and minerals are micronutrients. That's kind of our big topic of the discussion today. So there's vitamins and minerals. Vitamins are organic compounds that are needed in small amounts. So think vitamins A, B, C, D, E, K. Minerals are inorganic compounds. So they're not carbon based to get into like the really boring, interesting to me science part of it. So minerals are the things like the metals you might hear. So sodium, iron, potassium. So one of the big key differences between macronutrients, so carbs, protein, and fat, is that they carry energy. So that's where we get calories. That's where we get energy from our food. That is what gives us energy. So micronutrients, so vitamins and minerals do not provide any energy to the body. They just play a role in kind of all the little processes that your body uses to just function smoothly. Um, awesome. Next slide. So, kind of what we touched on in the last slide is that vitamins and minerals play a role in just overall general health. So, here in this slideshow, I've kind of just pointed out how different vitamins or minerals being low can impact you in some way. So, low iron, so that's kind of anemia. Um, I'm sure many people have or know someone who is anemic or slightly anemic. So that kind of slows down, that causes fatigue. Vitamin D deficiency is big for bone health. So that'll be weakened bones. It's also important for our immune system. So that can be impaired. Magnesium, feel free to react or drop in the chat if you ever feel like you have restless legs or you wake up with Charlie horses in the night. Um, I know that's happened to me before, a muscle cramp at night. It's traumatizing and terrible. Um, that can be a symptom of magnesium deficiency. Um, zinc and vitamin C, as we all know, I feel like is more commonly associated with the immune system. And then electrolyte imbalances. So even minerals like sodium, so salt and low potassium can sometimes be dehydration. And then that's where we can also cramp. Um, eating 3 meals a day is really big because when you have 3 meals a day and you're eating more food throughout the day, you basically are getting more opportunity to eat more vitamins and minerals. So, one of the biggest things that kind of happens is if we don't eat 3 meals a day and balance meals, and we'll kind of touch on what that looks like towards the end, is that you're kind of reducing or you're increasing the risk that you're not going to get enough of the vitamins and minerals you want throughout the day. Your body is like a car, but it never turns off right. You don't go to sleep and just die or like shut off. Your heart, your lungs, your organs are all still working. So your body's always running using different either macros or micronutrients. So the best thing that you can do for your body, right, is kind of pull in different nutrients throughout the day. So that's why eating 3 meals a day and normally a snack or two is really important, just micronutrient wise. Um, yeah, it gives your body the chance to absorb and use more nutrients throughout the day versus all at once. I'm getting a lot of good questions and I read some of them really fast. We'll touch on some of these very good questions at the end. So stay tuned, I promise. Next slide. So I don't know if you can tell what this is on our left here. It's basically a zero fat Greek dressing. So it's asking all of you, why do I encourage micronutrient deficiencies? So why is zero fat salad dressing not amazing for micronutrients? Throw some ideas in the chat. You can also still say, I don't know. Lots of sugar. That's a good question. The brain needs fat, perhaps. All good guess. Okay, Lori. I see Lori. She majored in nutrition. She got the answer. Um, yeah, for sure. We do need fat in our diet, Brittany. There tend to be not a lot of nutrients in the low fat ones. You're right. But um, next slide. So Lori, our former nutrition major, got the right answer. You need fat for fat soluble vitamins. So fat is actually a really important macronutrient for overall health and absorbing micronutrients. We'll kind of touch on a few here, but basically, there are some fat soluble vitamins, and basically, that is vitamins A, E, D, and K. And basically, it's fat soluble because you need fat to absorb it. So when we have our dark leafy greens, which are rich with vitamins A, E, K, like kale, for instance, if you do not have salad dressing or a good amount of avocado and like nuts and seeds, you are automatically not going to absorb all those fat soluble vitamins. So that's why fat is actually a really important part in just our general health and eating for health as well. Um, we have anti-inflammatory fats and then inflammatory fats. So anti-inflammatory fats we really like because they reduce that wear and tear that happens in the body. They fight that inflammation just from our stressful lives. And then inflammatory fats tend to be pro-inflammatory. So they sometimes trigger some inflammation in the body. That does not make them inherently bad for you, but just if we're kind of feeling maybe a little bit more nutrient dense, we're going to grab our anti-inflammatory fats. So, cheat sheet, what is anti-inflammatory versus inflammatory? How can I tell? Basically, it's all of our plant-based sources of fat is anti-inflammatory. So think things like nuts and seeds, olive oil, avocados, um, walnuts, things like that. And then the other one that's kind of a trick is that fish, so things like salmon and tuna, are very rich in anti-inflammatory fats as well. So it's basically fish and then all the plant-based sources. And then normally our inflammatory fats tend to be our animal-based fats. Um, Doesn't mean they're inherently bad for you. They can still play a very positive role. But if we feel like we're getting sick, or maybe you're a little bit sore, or you want to eat for your, more nutrient dense, that's the plant-based fats are the ones we tend to like more for that. Um, Fat plays a role in brain health. So there's omega 3s. Those are basically a very anti-inflammatory fat. There's two kinds of omega or three kinds of omega 3s. They're found in plant-based and animal-based sources, and they're actually really good at one, fighting inflammation, and then two, they go to your brain and they help make the myelin in your brain. So it's very good for cognitive health as well. So one of my favorite things to tell, my clientele is just try to have an anti-inflammatory fat at each meal. It's going to go towards something good, whether you're going to get absorb more vitamins and minerals, you're going to get a little bit more color, or you're just going to get some anti-inflammation or more nutrients. Let's try to have that. So even if you just top your salad with some nuts and seeds, or like an avocado, or even just cook with olive oil, it's a great way to incorporate more anti-inflammatory fats. Next slide. So, vitamin D, the easiest and also the most difficult vitamin to get. So, at the top here, vitamin D, there's research that shows it's implicated in like hundreds of processes in the body. The most popular one we hear about is keeping our bones strong. It helps support your immune system. So, people who have good vitamin D tend to get sick less. They're actually finding that it actually helps make your muscles be more optimal. So, if you guys work out, um, you don't have to be, a D1 athlete to work out and have vitamin D play a role in your muscle health. And then it can help reduce inflammation after training if you have good vitamin D. Some studies even show that depression is linked to low vitamin D. So plays a lot of role, right? Different places. So I think most people here have kind of heard that vitamin D comes from the sun. Your body can make it from the sunlight, but many people, especially in winter, don't get enough. Basically, the way that the like sun, the UV rays kind of angle, it's actually harder for your body to get vitamin D from the sunlight. And then it's also not found in a lot of food. So I'm going to tell you the like five or six sources, and then you're going to see why a lot of the times I recommend a maintenance dose supplement. Um, so there's things like salmon and tuna, cod, that fatty fish, they have it. Egg yolks have some vitamin D, beef liver, I don't eat a lot of that. I don't know if you all do. Power to you if you do. And then fortified foods. So like milk, orange, it might be fortified with a little bit of vitamin D, but it's kind of hard to get. So more is not always better. So this is not me telling you to just get the biggest bottle of vitamin D and take a million pills. The best way to know is to kind of, when you go to your PCP, get your routine lab work, see how that is, and then go from there. But this 2000 IU vitamin D3 is a really good maintenance dose. It's pretty prophylactic. So if you guys are ever looking for a good little thing, um, that is the one I would recommend. Next slide. Proud of you, Gloria, taking it every day. So stress. So we go through a lot of stress, right, in the body. We basically, in order to combat stress, eat antioxidants. Antioxidants is just a fancy way to say that this little nutrient fights and reduces that stress. So some of our vitamins and minerals are antioxidants. So think things like vitamin A, C, and E. Um, like we kind of mentioned, two of those are fat soluble. So think about how much stress reduction you're kind of losing from the food you eat if you're not going to have a fat with it. So that's really important too. That's how fat kind of plays a role in the immune system. And then these are all different sources. So dark leafy greens, carrots, strawberries, tomatoes, broccoli, mango, spinach, broccoli, and then nuts and seeds and avocados, even dark chocolate. Don't twist my words. I didn't say milk. Those are all really good ways to get more antioxidants and reduce stress in the body. Um, I have a fun little question for the chat. What is the best source of vitamin C? It's not listed, so you can't even cheat. Throw out your best guess. I'll be proud of you either way. The sun, that's a good guess. Kiwi, good guess. Lime, good guess. Apple, amazing. Red bell peppers. Yes, I see Eddie and Lynn have been cooking in the chat. I think they've gotten all the answers right so far. So bell peppers are actually the best source of vitamin C. So if you want to help reduce stress with food, try to go out of your way to have all these different colors, right? Um, next. So electrolytes. You hear about electrolytes all the time. You're kind of like, okay, Gatorade's, you hear Gatorade's bad for you. You hear all these things, right? You're like, I don't even know what electrolytes are. Sometimes I'm like, I don't even know. That's a joke. You can laugh. But electrolytes basically are tiny minerals that they play a role in muscle health and also just little different processes like cognitive function. I'm proud of you, Anna, for drinking Gatorade. Um, when you sweat or lose fluids, which you kind of are constantly losing fluids all the time, whether you're breathing, you're in bed. We sweat a lot in bed. People don't really realize it. So a lot of the times we wake up dehydrated. But basically, without enough electrolytes, all of these different processes might be a little slow. So a lot of the times you might wake up feeling tired, weak, or if you have that brain fog, being dehydrated and not having enough of those minerals can cause headaches. Um, so sometimes when you think you are dehydrated and you like start chugging water, sometimes it's really helpful to have electrolytes as along with that to actually hydrate the body. Um, Drinking electrolytes in the morning helps replace what is lost. So replenishing electrolytes jumpstarts your hydration and energy levels for the day. So even if you do a little thing like squeeze a little bit of lemon juice in your water and then add a touch of salt, that can actually be really helpful at hydrating you. Coconut water, um, you can buy the Gatorades, you can buy the Propels. Those are all good little ways to kind of incorporate hydration. Um, and that'll actually help you with your brain health and different things like that. Electrolytes also help you retain the water, which is actually helpful for optimal hydration. Next slide. So I've talked a lot. You've heard a lot about vitamins and minerals. You're like, okay, Nick, what am I supposed to do with all this just like word vomit you just threw at me? Next slide. So some of my key takeaways for just overall eating for health, especially with micronutrients. My favorite one is eat the rainbow. And no, I don't mean just go buy a bunch of Skittles. So when you look at all the plants that we've talked about, so all the fruits and vegetables, there's a bunch of different colors. the colors kind of coordinate with different similar vitamins and minerals. So vitamin A is really common in oranges, like or orange fruits and vegetables. So think like papaya, sweet potato, things like that. Red fruits and vegetables tend to be really high in vitamin C, and that pattern goes on with the colors. So, my favorite kind of recommendation is that we always try to have a color at every meal, and the goal is to try to have as many different colors as possible, but at baseline, try to have a different color at every meal. Have a fat source at every meal, so whether that's cooking in olive oil or just adding dressing to your salad, that's very important. Um, if you're active, you incorporate electrolytes into one drink a day. That would be really helpful. And then performance plates. So this is like the most baseline thing I talk about with any client. There's basically the performance plates, and there's three things: carbs, protein, and color. And that's basically a balanced plate. Um, the carbs and the protein are there so that you have stable blood sugar, and then the color is also there to basically give you a micronutrient. Um, yes, cool. So those are my key takeaways. So we've talked a lot. I think we can go to the next slide, which I think is my question slide. I think you're muted, Julie.
Thank you. Okay, this is your last slide here, Nick. Thank you so much. We have a lot of questions for you. So I can start now and have you answer them, and whatever we don't get through, we'll send out to the group. When you mentioned earlier about the 3 meals a day to make sure that we're getting enough nutrients and having time for the vitamins to get absorbed, there were a couple questions in the chat about fasting, intermittent fasting. I know there's different opinions on that. Do you have any statements you want to say about your thoughts on that versus the 3 meals a day?
Yes, so intermittent fasting has less research on it than people want to kind of claim. And I think eating is also important to remember that there's kind of three reasons people can eat. So there's eating for performance on one corner, there's eating for health on the other corner of the triangle, and then there's eating for kind of aesthetics, think bodybuilding, on the other corner. And I really like this analogy because kind of the closer you get to one, the further you might get away from the others. So intermittent fasting is more so allegedly an eating for health kind of opportunity. But there's not enough research on it, I think, to warrant to see how it affects people long term, because studies show that the more you skip meals, the more your body actually uses its own stores to break down. So think like muscle and bone. Um, so for someone who's really active, I don't like intermittent fasting because you're more likely to get hurt, more likely to get injured, like stress fractures and things like that. So for general population, I am okay with intermittent fasting, but that's why I like the 3 meals a day
Engagement is
because
not one of the words we cannot use.
um to finish up my thought, intermittent fasting is less studied, so I'm not the biggest proponent for it. And I like eating 3 meals a day because basically it helps you have more balanced blood sugar throughout the day, which helps with your concentration. So if you're having your performance plate, carb and protein, that kind of keeps your blood sugar more stable. And if you're doing that throughout the day, that's going to help you feel better throughout the day. It normally helps prevent energy slumps. Um, so that's my thought process on intermittent fasting.
Sure. Thank you so much for your guidance on that. Question about how do we know how much iron we need to take?
That is a really good question. So there are RDAs for both men and women. Um, Women obviously have higher RDAs because of they just naturally lose blood through menstrual cycles. So normally, our baseline recommendation is to have, and I didn't touch on iron too much in this presentation, but our best source of iron is things like red meat, animal-based sources, so dark meat chicken, I think oysters, things like beef liver again. Um, my kind of go-to for prophylactic maintenance of iron is having red meat 2 times a week. And then normally a multivitamin has enough iron to kind of keep your levels healthy in like a very healthy range. Iron is something that is definitely more lab work driven. Um, so I don't want to give anyone a blanket kind of recommendation besides just red meat twice a week and then a multivitamin.
And then for milk, is whole milk better than reduced milk? So is the milk fat good? And then what about avocado oil versus olive oil? Any thoughts?
I'll touch on avocado oil first. So avocado oil is really better for cooking. So it has a higher smoke point, so it actually, which basically means it maintains its form better, versus olive oil tends to burn sooner, which can obviously then you're eating like burnt, you know, kind of toxins for lack of a better word. So avocado oil is way better for cooking and like baking, and then avocado or olive oil is better for things like salad dressings, glazing, stuff like that. That's a good question. I didn't touch on that. And then whole milk versus like low fat milk, that kind of depends on your goals, right? So if you are maybe eating to kind of that's like your drink that you're gonna have that is your fat source at the meal. Like that's a good way to get carbs and protein in a little bit more, and then some fats. And then if you're maybe in a weight loss moment or era, obviously low fat or lower, yeah, low fat or no fat milk, skim milk, that's the word I was looking for, could be more beneficial for you. So then like whole milk has vitamin D in it, right? Because it's milk. So whole milk could be better at like absorbing vitamin D. So it's kind of depends on like the purpose of what your life goals are at that moment.
And then for olive oil, is uncooked olive oil better than cooked olive oil?
Kind of
Any
like what
thoughts?
I mentioned earlier. So um, olive oil, yes, is kind of better if you are not cooking at a high temperature. So it's better to use
Got
olive oil overall in like salad dressings and things like that versus
Mhm.
avocado oil.
Okay. And when you were talking about vitamins, vitamin D, what is the difference between vitamin D3 and D2?
That's a good question. Vitamin D3 is more absorbable, so it's going to be more effective. If you are going to get like a little supplement, I'd rather you have vitamin D3 because it's more bioavailable, so your body's going to be able to use it better than vitamin D2.
And then which performance plate you think is the best on this slide?
That's a good question. Again, it's based on your goals. So the one on the far left is, as we can see, has more fruits and vegetables, has the least amount of carbs. This is what I would call our like lean out plate. So it's normally not meant for weight maintenance, or you might have a goal of trying to cut a little bit, et cetera, et cetera. The one in the middle is what we call our weight maintenance plate, and this is for everyone. You don't have to be like a D1 athlete. These tend to work across the board, in my opinion. And then the far right plate has the most carbs. That's our recovery plate. So if you're working out a lot, you're very sore, you're like, oh my God, that workout killed me. I always try to get the the recovery plate on our far right because that carb helps you top off your muscles energy after that's been depleted, and then the protein goes towards just straight rebuilding, etc. So good questions.
And when you were talking about electrolytes and hydration, what about adding fresh aloe to water? Does that help with hydration?
It's not going to hurt. You're going to get more micronutrients, right? So I'm not mad at that at all. It might not be as hydrating as some things, but no, go ahead and put your aloe in your water.
Mhm. And what about antioxidants and alcohol? Benefits versus the risks,
For the
like
red
in red
wine,
wine, like
right?
in red wine.
So alcohol is probably the only thing I would ever allow anyone to say is technically bad for you. Unfortunately, it dehydrates you. It affects you for 72 hours after you kind of drink. It also stimulates muscle breakdown. So it's kind of just in there wreaking havoc in your body. Not so I would say that yes, technically, I would say that the alcohol in red wine outweighs it more than the antioxidants.
Great. And we're out of time, so I'm going to move us forward, and the remaining questions in the chat will have Nick answer offline, and we'll send it out to everyone. Lindsay?
All right. That was excellent, Nick. Thank you. So I just want to highlight some of the resources that we have from our Eat Well committee here listed on the slide. I mean, you're in the Eat Well Bite sessions right now, so you know about those. But we also work in partnership with USC Hospitality on the Eat Well Meals program. And as a reminder, these are all specially curated meals to fit nutrition guidelines. So look for those Eat Well symbols on the campus dining mobile ordering app or the ordering kiosks. And we're really looking forward to adding some new options this fall. The Eat Well cookbook is almost complete, and we're currently reviewing and putting together the variety of recipes submitted to showcase our campus community's rich cultures. Also, be sure to check out the Eat Well website. Find the link to our cooking videos library with over 100 videos for easy balanced recipes. And there are so many recipes on there that are just loaded with all of those great nutrients that Nick mentioned today. And also on the website, we have a variety of nutrition guides to help you eat healthier on campus at the USC Village, or even healthier shopping at Trader Joe's. And don't forget that if you want to revisit any of our Eat Well Bites webinars, you can find those on the Eat Well website page. So please check out our website resources by scanning that QR code on the screen.
Thank you, Lindsay, for sharing all that. And finally, we are asking all of you to complete 2 evaluation forms. One is for today. Give us your feedback on today's session, as well as suggestions for future topics as we plan our fiscal year 26 series. And then we also have an evaluation for the entire series for this entire spring. So please fill that out. And I want to thank the team involved in Eat Well Bites, all of our wonderful presenters, my health and well-being program coordinator, Suzanne, our health and well-being interns, and our co-leads, Lindsay and Carrie. We'll be back in September, so stay tuned. And before we end, I will stop screen sharing and have Myra spin the wheel to see who our lucky winner, raffle winner is for today. And thank you, Nick, for the great presentation. So informative. I learned a lot as well. And I know there's about 5 or 6 questions in the chat that we'll have Nick answer offline. So thank you for entering the raffle, everyone. And we're spinning the wheel. So let's see who our lucky winner is. And we'll be contacting you for your gift card. Ooh, Myra Salazar. Congratulations, Myra. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you back in September. Nick, if you can stay on.